Al-Karooni, founder of GlobeChain. I heard you speak at a conference 2 weeks ago, and I was so impressed by what GlobeChain does. Could you begin by kind of describing what the organisation does?
Yeah, sure. GlobeChain is a reuse platform for corporates. It's a marketplace that connects businesses to charities and SMEs and individuals to give and take unwanted items. So it's about reuse and redistribution. And the system collates a social impact waste audit on the giving. We focus in 3 main areas: retail, which is fixtures and fittings and stock; commercial, which is office refurbs and computers; and we've got construction, which can be anything from demolition all the way to refurbishments as well.
Fantastic. And how did it come about?
I used to work for an investment bank, and we moved offices literally across the road. You could see the building, and the facilities people came round and asked us to pick new carpet tile colours, new computers, new desks, new chairs, and so on. And my thought was, why are you getting rid of all this stuff? We can just take it over to the other side. And they were like, no, we're going to throw it away because we haven't got the time to find the right people. So it got me thinking, why has waste not been digitalised and technology used to enable connecting people together to take unwanted items like a free eBay?
So all those carpets, all those computers, etc., would have ended up all being equal in landfill?
Absolutely, yeah. They would have just hired a skip.
Amazing.
Or hired a waste disposal company, and they wouldn't know where it's gone.
So wasteful.
It is. It was a lot. It roughly equated to £50,000 per person to make the move.
Wow.
So, and they didn't know what percentage of that obviously was to do with the waste, but it was a lot, and we had 300 people in the building. So.
Gosh, well, good for you. And what happened next?
So I had this mad idea to try it, and I quietly did a prototype. I put my own money in and just got a web guy to create a basic product and tested it in the market. So I basically picked up the phone to one of the largest retailers, and they said yes, they'd like a meeting. And I found out they'd been so much fixtures and fittings, so they don't have the storage space in their stores. We thought, well, let's give it a go. And basically I got to work on the phone and thought, who wants these fixtures and fittings? And I found charity shops and small shops tend to want those things because they're really expensive to buy and quite bespoke. And it worked. And that year we did 60 stores for them. And we got rid of about 98% of the fixtures and fittings. The only stuff that really didn't go were really broken items.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there any limit to this model? I mean, it sounds like this could, be such a transformative thing around the country, around the world. I mean, we are throwing away so much, and yet we seek a circular economy.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I mean, we're in the UK, so we've got 10,000 members, and for 1 or 2 clients, we're in 7 countries in Europe. So for me, I see it like global and local supply chains, because the possibilities are infinite, really, because if you just connect people together through technology and there's logistics in place for people to pick up items on a localised scale, or even redistribution cross-border, you can connect freight, cargo. There's empty spaces in all these freight and cargo companies where, they're the carbon emissions. So that, it helps them reduce that. It saves on space because the space is empty when it goes back somewhere. And why not help a charity or a small business save some money or sell it and help a community or a hospital or a school or so forth with it.
That's wonderful. Could you describe 1 or 2, 3 sort of current or recent examples of the kinds of transactions that have happened and how they've worked?
Yeah, absolutely. On a really small scale, we've done computers, chairs and tables, and it's gone to charities and really small businesses just to kit out their offices. That goes really quick, kind of 24 hours, an alert goes to members. Whoever's interested goes on the site and requests them, and they really pick up the same week or the week after, depending on the company that uploads them. On a larger scale, we've done medical equipment for the NHS. This is quite interesting because legally you can't reuse them in this country for health and safety and compliance reasons, but you can use them in different countries with different legislation. So we have a lot of disaster recovery charities take patient beds, saline solutions, things like that, quite bespoke items to, we've had Kenya, Sierra Leone and Guinea for Ebola crisis, and it's kitted out rural healthcare centres, it's kitted out local authority offices and schools out there, and we've just done, we've sent building material through a charity that's basically rebuilding hospitals in Libya, and we've had schools in Ukraine and hospices in Ukraine take items. You've got things like computers, so we have prisons in the UK take them, teach young offenders how to fix them. So it's an apprenticeship scheme and a training skill required for that, and then they sell them and the money goes to homeless charities. And we've had things like kitchen equipment, cabinets, brand new stock go to charities or social enterprises that help take women out of domestic violence and kit them up in their new homes and flats.
That's wonderful. And are there GlobeChains? Have you got sort of sister organisations in other countries? Is anyone else doing this sort of globally? Or
not on the scale we are.
Yeah.
There's no real B2B kind of marketplaces. There's been swap shops in the past internally where companies have set up their own internal systems and swapped items, but it's been on quite a low volume, low quality and quantity stage. Where we, I think, are unique is that we can do actually quite big items. So our largest thing to date is 13,000 pallets of kitchen cabinets and carcasses and things like that, and they went in 48 hours. Really? So you wouldn't believe kind of what people take, and it all got redistributed mainly to charities and social enterprises and a few individuals as well. We also do social impact data. When I first started, there was no data in the market about reuse or the market capitalisation of how big this economy is. They say it's around 410 billion, up to 1 trillion with McKinsey and PwC for circular economy models. So we've had to kind of create this small niche as such that's become a multi-million-pound niche basically, and basically pushed forward and pioneered that type of data. So we've had to really create it from scratch, which has been quite interesting because we've done 1 million kilos diverted from landfill in a year and a half of the data being collected in this way, and it's been savings around 900,000 to charities, and that's really been just a couple of big clients that we've taken into consideration for that. So the scale could be huge if you got even a smaller 10% of the companies out there on it.
And would you need regulation for that to happen, or could this take place at scale without?
Yeah, we're quite fortunate that legislation-wise, there's a grey area within reuse. So we've spoken to the Environment Agency a couple of years ago and said, you know, can we reuse items and upload it virtually and people not have to deal with waste licence notes? So a waste licence note is a document basically people have to provide when they're recycling certain materials or taking materials off a site. And disposing of it ethically. Because it's being reused, it's assumed and guaranteed that it's going to be used for the same purpose, so a waste licence isn't required. Obviously with electricals and hazardous material it's slightly different, but the majority of our items, we don't do hazardous anyway, the majority of items are reused rather than recycled, so we can get away with a lot without the waste licence notes. So legislation doesn't touch us in that sense. I think drivers with legislation would help us in the future, like VAT rebates, for example, encouraging companies to reuse more. And I think there's a lot that could be done government-wise, but I think economically it's about the businesses pushing it, and that's what we're seeing. The way we're working, it's the corporates wanting to change their business. And we get a lot of companies, specifically construction, say to us, can you do something with our plastic now and our wood? And it really surprises me because, you know, normally they would reuse it, recycle it, or waste to energy, for example, but they're actually wanting different and more kind of innovative ways of reusing it now. So I think the industry is definitely changing, and legislation will have to probably catch up at some point with that.
That's very interesting. I think you mentioned in the US and maybe elsewhere that lots of fridges go to waste because they're used in medical or for pharmaceutical contexts and then can't be, perfectly good fridges are then lost?
Yeah, so basically the NHS, their policy is, you know, obviously they have an audit, so every 6 months things have to be replaced, and that's purely because of to stop contamination. So they're perfectly good products, but they'll have to change them, like the curtains will have to be changed, and if there's a slight slit in the fabric, they'll have to quickly remove it from a site. So there's a lot of waste being generated because of policy, and probably old policy, based on, old standards of hygiene. Things like crutches. I can't give you a crutch because you might sprain your muscle on it because you haven't been trained and you could sue me. So that's the reason crutches don't get reused, which is madness because it's aluminium and they're expensive. Fridges for us are quite interesting because a lot of people want usable white goods. We have a lot of food charities that take it. Everybody needs fridges because they're so expensive. So a lot of the electrical side works really well, and also microwaves is another thing. So we have a restaurant on board that has an audit of every 6 months because they use the microwave so much in the restaurants to, say, maybe reheat the food or do something with it. They have to buy a new one after 6 months. So rather than them fixing it because the filament's gone or the handle's broken off, they'll just buy a new one. So there's that kind of wastage that it's basically based on policy, old policies put in place in the past, when really they could just probably call the manufacturer, have a deal with the manufacturer to find a new handle.
Very interesting. And we're conscious in the UK that landfill is, we're fast running out of space. And then internationally, we're aware of huge mountains of waste being shipped around the world, and computers and the like. So it feels to me like this could be a major part of the solution to the world's waste crisis.
Yeah, I really hope so. That's my vision. Global domination. I want to prove that you can be a business, but also do good philanthropic wise, because businesses at the moment, it's all about commercial side of it. They have to sell products, they have to make a profit, they have to, talk to their stakeholders and shareholders to make money. But, there is a way to do good business, and I think that's going to start coming out within the circular economy and the sharing economy. And it's only a matter of time before new technologies come out. And where I see kind of GlobeChain fitting in on that is it's a simple process of reuse. If we can connect people that need it around the world, that can take items and reuse it, we're prolonging the product until more sophisticated technology comes about, where we can do more innovative and interesting things and become fully circular, if you like, or closed loop. And I see our members really changing and growing within themselves. So, we might be more charities and small business now, but maybe in a couple of years' time, we actually might be more small businesses or charities making more money out of creating new products, or waste to energy gets more sophisticated, or new technology out there to make things more closed loop. So I think our members will be a different type in the future. So I'd like to think we're an enabler for that to come about, and using our data and the technology we can advance it. We can tell you exactly what's going where, in which country, where it's ended up, what's the value of that, and how it's helped the impact in the community, whether that's socially, economically, or for the environment as well.
And this is through the data and the model and the platform that GlobeChain represents, effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. We send a feedback form to every member that takes items, and we document basically if it's been reused, resold, upcycled, the value of that, the saving or the resale value, if it's helped indirectly with upskilling and employment. So, for example, the computer fixing, that's technically upskilling. So, if a charity save money by taking items, they may have more money to employ somebody or train a young unemployed youth to create a micro business. So the idea behind it is how much impact can we create indirectly from just giving a few items. For us, it doesn't feel that much, but it's the byproduct is saving the environment and reducing landfill, but actually there's a social impact side that's far greater as well on that really.
And have you engaged at all with Ellen MacArthur and her foundation on the circular economy, which is doing lots of very good policy work?
Yeah, absolutely. We were lucky to be part of an SME programme with the GLA, the Mayor's Office, and Ellen MacArthur on seeing how we could link with them and do co-projects with some other members to help, with the circular economy and push it and kind of multiply the people understanding what circular economy is. And it was really beneficial for us because it showed me there were really big companies out there that were taking it quite seriously about changing their business model. You've got Philips with lighting, and Unilever's doing a lot. There's a lot of companies doing things behind closed doors, which probably the industry doesn't see yet. So they're kind of pioneering the way, and I think it'd be really interesting when one comes out with a truly successful and profitable way, as well as showcasing the fact that they're saving the environment and making a big impact on, say, UN climate change targets, for example. So I think that's been quite exciting to be involved in that. We've done case studies around built environment with them, and a specific housing association builder to show how the impacts have helped there. And we've also been working with a co-group on looking at importing and exporting taxes on recycling and reuse goods cross-border. So trying to help other companies with a framework in place for that, because obviously it can get quite complex.
Thank you. It's really, really fascinating. And you mentioned, I think you have Iraqi heritage, which is of some interest to me, because I also had an Iraqi stint working in the wonderful country of Iraq. And I wonder whether in the Middle East that there could be, or in Iraq indeed, there could be models of this kind. Have you had a go at
I
taking
have indeed.
Have you really?
Yes.
Oh, right.
So we've been approached by someone quite prominent in Saudi Arabia to look at the Middle East as a model and trial it in the Gulf states. So it's something definitely close to my heart because of my heritage. And I think there's a lot of upheaval there, and I think a lot of people could use redistribute items, but also be educated around waste. I've been to Iraq a few times in the last couple of years, and what's really interesting there, the economy is booming with respect to, you can get everything because everything's open now. But what's interesting is infrastructure waste is still very poor. So sanitation is very poor, and it's a shame because where I'm from, Basra, it's like the Venice of the Middle East. So it's all about the forests and the water and the canals, and they're quite polluted at the moment. And it's just consequence of war. And I think taking stuff from over here or redistributing where companies are around locally in the area to benefit communities, that's a great way of the money being spent in a positive way for that. But also, places like Arab Emirates, Dubai, they're doing a lot on sustainability and solar and wind, and I think this could be quite an interesting angle for the waste side, because a lot of it's focused on energy at the moment.
Very interesting. Thank you. Well, good luck with that too.
Thank you.
and other parts of the world? What about sort of Africa, parts of Africa?
Yeah.
Have you looked at
again, we get a lot of charities and individuals contact us from Africa, so we're actually looking at Tanzania and Eastern Africa to see how we can redistribute items, because there's quite high demand around there, as well as South Africa itself. Obviously, we'll continue our work in West Africa with the charities that we've got, and hopefully build on more charities and enterprises and businesses that want to look at doing it there. The main challenge with Africa really is that it's just huge and logistically it needs a bit of thought about partners on the ground. We're also looking at the US, so we're hoping by the end of the year starting maybe in New York and doing a small trial there to see, because the model is very similar to the UK in the way that they spend money on their skip hiring and disposal. So it's about replicating it, and a lot of our companies and members on board here are global companies, so hopefully we can just replicate it and speak to their counterparts there and trial.
Very interesting. I interviewed David Attenborough for the book, and he was very thoughtful about waste, and he was upset about how much waste in packaging there is. Absolutely. And how he was inveighing against inbuilt obsolescence in radios and tech kit, and he said basically he felt that the companies often really didn't give very much thought to the longevity of their products, because it was only a matter of time before they could be replaced with new models and so on.
I agree, yeah. I have a bugbear with overpackaged cakes in the shops, where you have like a carton and then you have a plastic template and then they're individually wrapped. I just don't see the point, because it's not a luxury product. No, it's a cake. do we care? No. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there, but also it probably comes down to legislation as well on what type of plastics. I was speaking to one company, and we were talking about their inks being wrapped in a certain cellophane, and I said, why do you need the cellophane? You could just put it in this amazing box that you've got that you can invert and send back and get it refilled. And they were like, we would love to, but it's actually a legal requirement to cover the inks in this plastic cellophane wrap. So I think some of it's not their fault, and as you said, I think some of it is, I think that maybe the designers need to be probably more educated on the sustainability, which I'm seeing as well. I'm seeing a lot of, from architects all the way to these large companies, they are looking at the packaging because it makes sense and it does save them money as well. But it's also about the message sent out to consumers. We're quite a spoiled society, really. We have everything nicely packaged, looks nice. Do we actually need it? I don't know.
Well, that's surely part of it. Have you been able to talk to ministers about your model and what you're doing?
Ministers, not as much, no. We find it quite hard to get them involved, on the impact they can give. I'm sure they could do something. We're actually doing our own study to see if we can change VAT or give some kind of tax incentive to companies, but that's just been commissioned between us and a university to do that using GlobeChain data. We'd love to probably get ministers involved because I think they can, really lobby it for us in Parliament, but also we've tried councils as well. I think the challenge with councils is that there's no individual within those councils that focus on circular economy because it's an emerging economy within itself. So councils haven't been set up with a sustainability or circular economy person because they've never needed to. And I think now they have, and what's interesting about our data, it's actually aligned with their waste data flow inputs that they actually are required to fill in for government and EU purposes. So there's a benefit there from a data perspective to see what exactly is happening in their boroughs and their regions. But we find it quite difficult to engage with them on that scale. For residents and companies.
And is GlobeChain a social enterprise or a fully fledged company or a mixture?
Yeah, it's actually a fully fledged limited company. The reason I did this is because I believe, just personally from my experience, it's hard enough to run a business and hard enough to run a charity already, and to have the limitations and the paperwork required for a charity, I think would be hard for us to scale at the speed we need as a business and fundraise and do everything else what we need to do in the future to grow globally. I think it's easier as a company to do that, but also I don't think there's any shame in being a company for profit as long as there's a balance in that and it's doing good in a different way. So that's how I see that.
And have you got the investment that you need? Have people been flocking to support your brilliant work?
We get lots of good feedback. So when I first started, there was nobody because they didn't understand the market cap. They didn't understand what it was. It was like this big vision, an idea. So I basically just put my own money in and bootstrapped it. And luckily, because we kept it so lean and very tight and a lot of hard work, it actually is profitable, so it does make money. I think going forwards, it's becoming a bit of a monster. So we would have to look at funding, but what I find within the UK is they're quite risk averse. And I think the private equity and the venture capital market is not quite there yet with understanding the risk side of investing in a new business model, if you like, because it's kind of never been done before and they don't know all these companies are doing big things. So when they look at kind of projections and financials, they're looking at very traditional businesses, which this doesn't fit into. So I'd say there's a lot of challenge there, but there's a lot of challenge within the industry to change that. And I know some quite innovative banks are looking at kind of their credit risk and how they evaluate these new businesses because they see more and more coming to them. So they see there's an opportunity, but they're not sure how big that opportunity is. And I would say in the UK, they probably don't take as many risks as the US.
And don't sort of back ideas. same
Yeah,
way
it's
to-
very difficult to get funding on zero revenue unless you're kind of a hardware or if you're doing something in, say, science or technology where there's something tangible or you need a factory. Obviously, look how long it took solar energy and wind energy to become kind of almost mainstream, if you like, and acceptable. I think it's just the nature of the game of a new industry forming. I think there's going to be a lot of hard work for some main players who will show how it's done, and then people will be able to follow that as a template to do their own thing or copy it and implement it in different countries. And then I think, funding will be a little bit easier because they'll be classed as low risk, whereas something like me is high risk because you don't know how big I can grow.
Very interesting. And are there any parts of the current waste cycle that your company hasn't yet addressed, but which you feel you'd like to? I mean, is there a missing niche at the moment that you're trying to sort of work out how to crack?
Yeah, I think interestingly on the plastics, like reusing plastics is a big one, but that's a big industry need as well. And also electronics that are broken. I think network-wise, what we have, there are a few people that know how to fix microwaves and old computers and things like that, but I think there could be a big area to discover there with an organisation coming in and being able to take big volumes of it. What we find is there's amazing technology out there, but really for us it's about who can do that on a commercialised bigger scale, basically.
Fantastic. Well, Mary, I'm so impressed, really, and I wish you so well. I'd love to write about what you're doing in A Restored Earth, in the chapter on waste and a circular economy. So I will follow your progress with interest. I feel the world's your oyster, so it's a good luck, and I hope
Brilliant,
you can go to scale in the years ahead.
I hope your book too.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Really, really good to talk.